Hello. I've got 5 poems I want to do, all linked by our today's theme of hope. And the first few spring from my time as poet in residence, just up the road from here at the Innovation Centre, the not-for-profit Regen Southwest, and they reflect my fervent hope that we will collectively embrace renewable energy all around us, the energy all around us, the sun, the wind, the sea, the rivers, the earth. And my first one is called Invocation, and it's a kind of a prayer and a summoning spell. By the briskness of the breezes, by the freshness of the days, by the churning of the seasons and the parting of the ways, by the fleeting feral forces we can tap but cannot tame, by the scraping of the barrel, by the fanning of the flame, by the milking of the movement of the waters and the wind, by the deep recurring rhythms regulation can't rescind, by the rhythms of refusal, the beating of the drums, the complexity of physics, the simplicity of sums, by the ordinary miracle, every minute, every hour, by the muscle in the molecule, the pervasiveness of power, by the measure of the treasure that will always pass us by the awesome orphaned portion of the wide, wide sky, by the planning applications, by the placard in the hand, by the opposition's passion, by the curving of the land. Let the blessing of the heavens and the good from underground meet completely in the middle, in the country and the town. May the blessing be accepted. May we know it isn't wrong to welcome in the guest who's waited patiently so long. By everything that flickers or flies into a rage, by the twist in all our knickers, by the rattle in our cage, by the facts we're forced to muster in defense and in attack, by our belief in our own bluster, by the monkey on our back, by the throbbing in the temple, by the fury and the fuss, by the bridge across the chasm all the way from them to us, by the health and by the safety, by the calculated risk, by the energy encased in our sun's ever-slipping disk, by the gifts we take for granted that may one day be withheld, by the many trees we planted and the many more we felled, by the leaking of the data, by the sneaking of the peak into a future we're afraid of and a future that we seek. May we mine the seams of sunshine, trap tornadoes in our nets. May our account come into credit as we pay off our regrets. Let the energy be harvested and gathered safely in, and let the argument be ended and the reckoning begin. Thank you. Heartfelt. I went up to, actually just went up, when I was doing the residency, I went up to the office of the Innovations Centre and I read this poem to the team at Regen Southwest, to show how the residency was going. And I read it to them and they went, "Oh, Matt, that is really long." And I said, if you like it long, I can do longer. They went, no. We like it, but could you also do pithy? We like pithy too. So I thought, I can do pithy. So I thought, I'm going to focus on one individual photon coming down from the sun and being pulled into the grid. And I called it Radiant Romance. To fly so far, so fast, and land so gently upon a panel on planet Earth. 8 1/3 minutes old and worth its weightlessness in gold. Fallen, faded, cooled. Then to be told, "Oi, photon, get your coat on. You've been pulled." And they liked that. Thank you. They like that very much. They said, "We like it when you're pithy, Matt. We really like that." And encouraged by that, my poems began to get shorter. And I wrote really and shorter and shorter. And as the poems got shorter, the titles began to get longer. Because all that creative energy had to go somewhere. That's just physics, isn't it? This next one is called "A Partially Submerged Person in Somerset Makes an Implicit Link Between Extreme Weather Conditions and Climate Change, whilst hoping that the latter may be mitigated by investment in renewable technologies." They like the title a lot. So. I want to go renewable, so my streets are less canoeable. That was it. Thank you. You also like the short ones. So anyway, this next one, a very different take on hope. My sons, not unkindly, tell me that I'm a bit of a hippie. And this does kind of prove their point. It's called They Say That Fish. They say that fish don't have a word for water, the same way birds don't have a word for air. That bricks, quite rightly, have no word for mortar, and angels, bless them, have no word for prayer. Most bees, when questioned, have no word for honey. The Oedipal don't have a word for Freud. The stinking rich don't need to carry money. The non-existent have no word for void. Though it may take us eons to achieve it, perhaps just to conceive of it's enough. It's an effort, frankly, just to half believe it. Our world may one day have no word for love. You see what I mean, really? It's just a thought, and I felt I could share it with you at TEDxExeter because I thought, they're all hippies, really. Obviously with a very strong rational side, enhanced critical faculties. Okay, my last poem is called The Whole in the Sum of My Parts. And you'll hear from the refrain, it makes the claim that our wishes, our dreams, are a substantial, vibrant, potent part of us. I used to introduce it with the expression, it celebrates the essentially fragmented nature of the human psyche, because I thought it was funny. But I've moved on. The whole in the sum of my parts. Part of me is punctual. It turns up right on time. Part of me is functional, though slightly past its prime. Part of me is criminal, it's quite against the law, and part of me subliminal and kind of either or. Part of me is lowly, it lows just like a cow. And part of me is holy, at least holier than thou. Part of me is actually more solid than it seems, and part of me is factual, but most of me is dreams. Part of me is truculent, don't look that way at me. Part of me is succulent. Suck it and you'll see. Part of me is detestable, or so people have said, and part of me is suggestible, or so people have said. Part of me is competitive, it only wants to win, and part of me is repetitive, or so people have said. Part of me is interminable, it goes on and on and on, and on and on and on and on, and on and on and on. This part of me is prolific, it writes reams and reams and reams, and part of me is terrific, but most of me is dreams. Parts of me are distant, and yet can seem so near. Parts of me are whispers, which the other parts can't hear. Parts of me are broken and tremble to the touch, and these parts can be spoken, but I don't speak them much. Part of me is pensive, I think, but I don't know. And part of me is defensive, so. Part of me is celestial, it gleams and beams and gleams, and part of me is bestial, grrr. But most of me is dreams. Part of me is tiny, but not the part you think. And part of me is shiny in a pleasing shade of pink. Part of me is laudable, it's for a worthy cause, and part of me is inaudible. Parts of me are latent, lurking dormant underneath. Parts of me are blatant. For some reason, they're called Keith. Parts of me have stamina because I do Qigong, and part of me is my anima according to the psychology of Carl Gustav Jung. Part of me is piddling, yet full of cosmic yearning. Part of me is fiddling, while the rest of me is burning. Part of me is fluent, it flows as sure as streams, while part of me plays truant. But most of me, as I've tried to emphasize here, is dreams. Thank you.